I'd call to order this committee of the whole meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores, and welcome all members and welcome everyone who's joining us via the live stream this evening. We're glad that you're with us. The second item on the agenda is disclosures of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those you'd like to declare. Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments, no open forum, no delegations, and no public meetings. So that moves us on to report of municipal officers and committees and item 7.3, which is an infrastructure and development report. And the first one is a staff report on the County of Bruce Natural Legacy Stakeholder Workbook. And we'll turn it over to the Supervisor of Development Services, Chief Osner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And this is, becoming a bit of a familiar sight for you, I hope, is that the county is ongoing with its County Bruce official plan review, as well as its understanding of a wide range of issues that were identified through the Bruce GPS process. You heard previously about agricultural and housing related policies, and now tonight is about the natural legacy policies. And as I outlined in the report, the input that they're seeking is early and I think meaningful because it helps them shape the future preparation of the policies and mapping that will be used. So they're looking for input on which features of the natural environment should be considered as part of a natural heritage system or a water resource system, and which how we're going to go about evaluating those. And so they've identified some questions essentially that can be asked to determine whether a policy they're proposing will actually be effective on what they're trying to do. And so the discussion paper that's attached, I've filled it out in a way that I think can be supported. And generally, the county has got three main approaches. I'll highlight them just briefly here. Is the number one is do what the provincial policy statement says, generally as it's recommended there, and not anything more than that. Option two, which is the preferred approach for this discussion from my perspective, is that they take the PPS and they build on that. They identify more features and more elements of the natural environment that can be preserved and eventually rolled into the official plan. Or option three, which builds on option two and says even more features and parts of the system that should be preserved and protected. And so that's how I've answered the workbook, and I'll leave it there for questions. Hopefully you've had time to review it, and if you support the resolution, it'll go to County Planning Department for consideration and eventually form part of the official plan review formally, I think, Mr. Mayor, unless I've misunderstood that part of the process.
Sure, no, that's about right. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Jay, it was a long read. It was very good, though, I think. I was really happy to see the emphasis on climate change and considering the impact of climate change on our community. I have a question about the options. One of the sections says that respondents are permitted to indicate a separate option for special features like wetlands, woodlands, valley lands, etc. And I was glad to see that you included option 3 for the section called areas that support hydrologic function. I wondered why you didn't choose option 3 for the significant woodlands, especially since we know that over the last couple of years, there's been a significant amount of interest and concern from the public about those features.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It said, I think I can only go back to the answer in the report, is that I wanted to build upon the previous policy regime. In other words, those policies were developed more than 20 years ago through provincial policy, the Planning Act and the provincial policy statement. And I think when the opportunity arises, we should build a little more progressiveness into the system. So because we have more understanding about the importance, I was inclined to pick option 2 for woodlands, because really the difference between option 1 and 2 is not much different. It's the same amount of woodlands that are proposed to be protected. But of course, I'm not an absolutist, as you know, and so I'd like to see the next step before refining our commentary, but because the on the ground circumstance may be different. And so I think that's what I'm hopeful for, is that the next step of this review from the county is that we'll be given another opportunity to look at the specific mapping based on the consultation, and an opportunity to revise our commentary to say like, well, we thought option 2, for example, was good, but then we saw this mapping and we want to reconsider that. And there's my answer.
Yeah, Councilor Grace.
Thank you, Jay. Just a kind of a summary question. If members of the public would like to comment on the town's workbook, because I know they had the opportunity to comment individually earlier in the process, but if they want to just comment on what we have said, should they send their comments to you?
Well, I'd certainly welcome to receive any comments, but certainly I'd rather them copy me and make sure the county knows as well. It's really their policies that are being developed at this time. So if they have comments about the proposed comments that we're making tonight, certainly by all means give them to me. They'll be useful for me when we go through our official plan on the environment policy, but the county is really the ones that should receive it at this time. Okay,
and the county staff member would be?
Jack Van Door is sort of the lead on this particular one, but if they go to planthebruce.ca, they can find more information related to the whole GPS and the official plan review, and more information on how to provide comments, and definitely the best place to go for that type of information.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, I'd be grateful to members of the public who have comments if they would copy me on those as well. It certainly helped me understand the context of people's views in Saugeen Shores. So make that comment as well. Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hadn't honestly considered making a comment about this report, but there's something that the director brought up there. He said that most of the policies were developed more than 20 years ago. Would it be a reasonably safe statement to say that the levels of protection and the policies around protecting our woodlands and fish habitats would be more stringent today than they were 20 or 30 or 40 years ago?
I'm honestly not sure. I know the policy to say that such and such a feature is considered a provincially significant wetland was developed 25 years ago or more, and there are that's how they developed it. But the way we go about evaluating them, the way we want experts to look at the development and determine whether impacts from development are can be mitigated or otherwise justifiable, that has changed. And certainly through my experience with Bruce County and even with the town, is that we certainly require that on a much more regular basis, given our relationship with the Saugeen Valley Conservation and even in our own reviews. Perhaps Kara, in her position previously, may have a different perspective, but that's my perspective.
Yeah, certainly more frequently we have to review, but you wouldn't say necessarily more stringently or more that the regulations haven't become stricter today than they were back in the 60s and 70s and 80s.
Oh yeah, certainly if you put it in that time frame, yes. I mean, we say now don't develop in provincially significant wetlands under any circumstance. In the 60s, 70s, didn't even say that at all. So
right. It comes, what brought it to mind to me was, and I brought this up before, was when we changed the discharge from the Port Elgin sewage treatment plant 40 or so years ago. When they originally built that plant, they thought it important to go 675 meters further and discharge into the large Saugeen main river. And then when we redid it a few years ago, we thought that dumping it just into Mill Creek and letting Mill Creek take it out was good enough, even though the discharge levels are much higher than they were when that plant was built 40 years ago. It would seem that they've gone the other way in that case. I know in my experience, Mill Creek does not have the run of migratory fish that it did a few years ago. And I can only attribute that to the fact that there's a large discharge of non-natural water for them there that they're having to swim up against, and it doesn't smell like the regular creek water that they're drawn to, and fish imprint on those waters. And I brought this up with the Ministry of Natural Resources, and they tell me it's not in their mandate to look after things like that. But anyway, it occurs to me that as time goes on, that it should be getting stricter, and that the science has gone further, and we should be protecting our wetlands and waterways and fish habitats more than we did before. So I agree then that option 2 is the best way to go, that we should take the minimum standards and build on them. Thanks.
Thank you. Further comments, Vice Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 51, Jay, you've got your document open there, I guess. I just was wondering if we refer to the table there on the natural environment features under woodlands, 51, Jay. Talked about significant woodland protected by policy 2.15 of the provincial policy statement. And Jay, that when we recommended target no net loss of woodland cover, when it goes on to say that the woodland cover in Bruce County is approximately 37%. And then it goes on to say again that it places the county at moderate risk. Yeah, I guess it was a low risk, moderate risk, high risk. Would that be the right? Are we right in the middle? Is that what it's saying?
Well, I don't know exactly the context in this particular comment. I haven't got the full discussion papers in front of me, but certainly do you have a specific question? Maybe I can help.
It places in a good position, I guess is what I'm saying. When you have people out there and, people talking about the environment and woodland cover, the no net loss of woodland cover is obviously a good thing. And I think that obviously the county and municipalities are doing a good job with that from what I'm reading. But on the right-hand side, Jay, I just was hoping for some little explanation on what I'm not quite 100% certain what it means when it reads geographic distribution of woodlands should be considered to inform significance criteria, patch size, shape, pattern of distribution, woodland quality should inform identification of significant woodlands. Can you just give me a quick explanation of what that means?
Well, sure. In determining with woodlands in particular, there's quite a bit more extensive evaluation for what makes woodland significant, or at least there's a more of a regimen that's evaluated when you're determining what's significant. And you'll note that in the previous part of the discussion paper workbook, it goes into talk about when we consider what a key feature and a supporting feature is. And some of those elements are and geographic distribution goes into this too, is that there are woodlands that because of the large, Bruce County is a big place. There's a lot of land to cover, and the woodlands aren't distributed evenly across all those lands, but the natural environment still has importance to the entirety of the county. But I guess what it's saying is that the shape of a woodland, the size of a woodland, its proximity to riverine systems, there could be other elements can be taken into consideration. So an area like Saugeen Shores, where its woodlands are generally along Saugeen River, say, along the shoreline, do those have a different significance, and should they be considered in a unique way within the natural system compared to, say, Northern Bruce Peninsula, whose woodland features are almost, cover more than half the landmass of the entire municipality? When you can't just say it's the size of the woodlands important. There must be other elements in Northern Bruce. I don't want to speak for Northern Bruce, but there may be something else to consider. So I think that's the point of that, is saying we should look at a variety of criteria to determine what's important to Bruce County when we're deciding what elements of the natural heritage system are important.
Thanks for that. Just my last question, Mr. Mayor, if I might. So Jay, once this report is done, it's going to obviously conform more closely aligned with the province's provincial policy, and it'll become part of the county's policy statement. Now, will we be using all or some? Can we pick? In terms of the town's official plan, this document can be could be part of the town's own official plan? Is that the objective here?
I think that's one of the objectives. I'd like to think a lot of the information being collected by the county right now, a lot of the technical expertise that they've got at their disposal because they've hired consultants that can do a lot of this work, can help us when we get to the stage of reviewing our natural features. For example, I'll use the woodlands, for example. They're going to map a lot of the woodlands that are greater than 4 hectares, that are greater than a hectare along these features that contain habitat for such and such species. We're going to be able to access that information and help develop our own system. Hopefully it's aligned with the counties. It may be the same as the counties. I don't know yet. And so between the mayor and myself, he sits on the steering committee, of course, being member of county council, and I'm on the technical advisory committee because I've got some, I'm a unique position in the county. I've got some planning experience and can help provide area municipality. That's part of the objectives of this process.
Okay. And time frame for completion, just what's the time frame again?
Well, the county would like to have its official plan review underway by the end of this year. And so I would say middle of next year is a fair estimate for much of the official plan work. I include this as part of it, but I don't know if they're ahead or behind schedule at this stage.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
No problem. Any further questions or comments? This is one of the more complex elements of the county's official plan review. What you have here is just an options report. So we're only looking at the beginning of this. What will follow will be a process of mapping the options. Once they've settled on how to approach each of these, they'll map that, put that on the landscape and release that for further review. I would say that Saugeen Shores and that everybody would be wise to reserve overall judgment of the wisdom of these options until you've seen the maps, because the maps will tell the tale. And then following that, a set of regulations to layer on top of the map to decide, so that will ultimately find their way into the official plan, which our official plan will have to conform to determine how we should handle these natural heritage systems, these water resource systems. So it's complex, and it will be, I think this will be of all of this work, there's a lot of work here and a lot of it's important, but this is one that members of this council and members of the public should pay careful attention to. I anticipate there will be a map come out at some point in this coming months, which will show this, and where you'll be able to zoom in to an extent where you'll be able to see your own property or properties that you're interested in and see how these systems impact property you own or municipal property, and that's going to be important for everybody to have a look at and make comment on and think about. So anyway, that's upcoming, and important. This is really just a very initial step in this process here today. So if there's nothing further, there is a recommendation that council forward the attached completed workbook as the town's response to the County of Bruce's plan, the Bruce Natural Legacy discussion. There's nothing further, then all in favor? That's carried. Okay, that moves us then on to a staff report on Connecting Link 2021 Intake 7 funding and the director.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Minister of Transportation has opened up the funding applications for the 2022 year, and this year we're looking at putting in 2 applications for the roundabout designs, one at McNabb and one at Concession 6. Both were recommended as part of the Transportation Master Plan, and we need a council resolution to support those applications.
Thank you. There's a recommendation. I'll read it. That council support the applications to the Connecting Links program for the roundabout designs, and that a copy of the application be forwarded to Lisa Thompson, MPP for Huron Bruce. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, that then moves us on to 7.7, communications for information. 2 items there. Any comments about either of those? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I just wanted to do a little update on the Environmental Stewardship Ad Hoc Committee. The most recent information there is that we finished our survey on the 17th. In our meeting on September 22nd, Professor Robert McLeman from Wilfrid Laurier University joined the committee, and he was able to turn around some initial data that he got from the digital responses. We have yet to include the paper responses. We had 500 and so far, I think 530 responses in total. And the committee thanks everyone who took the time to complete the survey. This will be really valuable information to inform our report. We are still accepting comments from the members of the public. If something occurs to you, or if you have an observation or some feedback, you can send that to me. And all of those comments are sent on to the committee for us to consider. Next month, one of our meetings is going to be starting to write our report, which is due at the end of the year. And so anyway, thanks again for everyone who took the time to help with our survey.
That's a great response. 530. That's outstanding. Congratulations on that. Are there any other questions or comments on either of those? I don't see any. So that moves on to item 9, reports of department heads, and there's 2 there. And the first is information report on the water and wastewater servicing master plan. The director, you have any comments to this?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to confirm that there weren't any comments made since the last report, so no updates. The 30-day appeal period will start tomorrow as we advertise in the paper, and then in the future, staff will take this report and use its recommendations for our capital program.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the director? Don't see any. So that moves on to the second one, an information report on the 2021 Development Services Planning Activity Report.
Thank you. And again, through you, I have Jay here to answer help answer questions as well. But this report is to give you an idea of what's happening in the development industry in Saugeen Shores. We've been busy with applications this year as well as the last few years. And these applications are what start before the building permit activity. And so we believe that that activity is going to continue to be at a higher level in the future. The special projects that are noted in this report should help with the continuation of that development and building permit applications, as well as the efficiency or improve the efficiency of the process.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Questions for the director on this one? Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just wanted to thank Jay for a detailed report and just again outlines, gives indication to all the great things that are happening here in Saugeen Shores from a development standpoint. And so Jay, thank you for your good work. The one question I did have was on page 4. And Jay, you mentioned in future reports, additional information on attainable housing will be collected, including rental accommodations, accessible design, 3-bedroom units. Jay, with the future report, I'm just wondering about Airbnbs, and I read recently where there's about 150 in county Airbnbs in the town of Saugeen Shores. Certainly provide a good resource for people that are coming in from out of town looking for rental accommodations. So there's obviously some good to those, without a doubt, and the investors are investing pretty heavily in Airbnbs in our community. I'm just wondering if in a future report, Jay, if you can give any consideration to where we should be heading with Airbnbs, tourism tax, inventorying, the impact that Airbnbs are having on our other forms of accommodation from a rental perspective. So if you give any thought into Airbnbs, Jay, and where we may be heading with that with future reports?
Well, I can only give a general answer, and there's a couple of elements. Is one, the consideration of short-term rental, not just Airbnb, but all short-term rental was identified in our housing discussion paper, and that it was something we should consider. The University of Waterloo also identified that short-term rental accommodation may have some, should be considered. The policy should be considered, and I'm not trying to hedge too much here, but I think that's a little too early to say, well, what's the policy going to look like for short-term rental when it's something we're going to consider. I can't say what it looks like right now.
Looks like the CAO would like to make a comment. CAO.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can build on Jay's comment there that we have flagged this in the 2022 work plan to take a look at, most likely through economic development with Jay's support, looking at short-term rental accommodations and destination tax. We know some of our neighboring municipalities are starting to look at that or put it in place. So there's good information out there for us to take a look at and see how it could be applicable in Saugeen Shores.
Excellent. It's good. It's good. It's being looked at. Thank you, Kara.
Thank you. Further comments of Councillor Mayette?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that was a good discussion about the short-term rentals there. I'll just say one thing. One thing I know from experience is there are some 150 or 157 listings of Airbnb in Saugeen Shores, but not all of them are maybe active listings. So sometimes the numbers are overinflated because it's different. Once you have a listing on Airbnb, it's rather difficult to delete the listing, and sometimes people just let it go dormant, kind of thing. And so the number may be overinflated. There was a big rush on it at the beginning, and it's kind of waned a little bit, I think, especially with the influx of more temporary workers at Bruce Power. So there you go. Just a bit of experience.
Okay, thank you. Further comments? I think well, it's a good report, Jay, and thank you for putting it together. It's good to see all this encapsulated together. And I think the important thing, you see the potential future activity, and what is there, 2, 4, 6, 8 different potential new subdivisions or areas located. Most of those are next phases of existing subdivisions or new subdivisions. And I think that the important message for you and staff to convey to all of those subdivisions is they'll have to include attainable housing, apartment buildings, higher density rentals. And I think staff knows this, but they ought come to council for approval of those future phases if they're not going to deliver attainable housing in each and every one of them. That's my comment. So thanks very much, Jay, and appreciate your report. So that moves us to the end of the agenda, nothing more. So we'll go around the table for announcements by members and the Deputy Mayor.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Nothing from me, thank you.
Councillor Schreider.
Quiet here as well, thank you.
Councillor Grace. Nothing.
Nothing for me tonight, thank you.
Councillor Carr.
Nothing for me as well either.
Oh, come on, Matt. Yeah, there's something, Councillor Mayette. You're still muted, Dave. Dave, you're on mute. Dave, you're on mute, buddy. We couldn't hear any of that.
Yeah, I'm going to a charity golf tournament on Thursday. It's the Bruce Power Suppliers Golf Tournament, and the United Way is one of the main benefactors of that tournament, and I'll be participating. And so wish me well.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right, nothing from me, so we'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Smith. All in favor? We stand adjourned, and how's everybody feel? Should we just roll right into council here? Okay, let's do it. Give me half a sec to switch agendas here. Okay. Okay, I'd like to call to order this regular council meeting, and the second item on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those you'd wish to declare. Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime. We have no additions or deletions. We have no public meetings, so that moves us on to adoption of the minutes. And I have a resolution that council adopt the minutes of the special council meeting of September 13th, 2021, the council meeting of September 13th, 2021, the special council minutes of September 21, 2021, and note and file the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of September 13th, 2021 as presented. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Schreider, second by Matheson. Any questions or comments to any of those sets of minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Then takes us to reports of the Committee of the Whole and a resolution that council adopt the following. One, that the vacant office of Southampton Ward Councillor be filled by appointment and that option 2 be used to fill the vacancy and that council approve the procedure to fill a council vacancy attached to this report. And 2, that the flag policy be approved. And 3, that council authorize staff to commence the process to declare surplus to the town's needs the property noted as part of PIN 332650001 and the lane PIN 332650104, and that council gives notice of the intention to pass a bylaw to stop up and close a section of the unopened road allowance and lane adjacent to Railway Street, and 4, that the housing reserve fund be established and designated as a discretionary reserve fund. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Grace, seconded by Maya. Any questions or comments to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. That takes us to 7, report of municipal officers and committees. And the first is a staff report on the water tower fence tender award. And there's a resolution that the fencing tender for the Port Elgin and Southampton water towers be awarded to Modern Fencing in the amount of $38,499 plus applicable HST. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Smith, seconded by Matheson. Questions or comments? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, just a question, it's probably too late for this, but I know that the kids throw rocks against the water tower because it makes a neat sound. I hate to say it, I did it as a kid myself. Is there any way, I'm sorry. Is there any way that there's a harder coat covering, paint covering that we can put on the bottom 2-3 sections that would help prevent the chipping that is occurring? Or are we too late with that?
Director?
I'm not sure if there's a better paint project or product that we can put on. We're going to have to repaint it in a couple of years, so we can revisit it at that time. Let's hope the fence is far enough away that the kids can't throw them that far.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I don't see any, so all in favor? That's carried. All right, and then we're on to the second report, which is a striking committee report to appoint Lamont Sports Park Fundraising Committee. And there's a resolution that the following members be appointed to the Lamont Sports Park Fundraising Committee. Councillor Kristen Schreider, Chair, Vice Deputy Mayor Mike Myatt, Rob Fawcett, Michael Martin, Rob Stanley, Jeff Myatt, Connor Yorth, Nicole Marsh, Lindsay Little, Greg Tatey, and Barry Dunlop. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Schreider, seconded by Myatt. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, that's carried. And then that moves on to a staff report on COVID policy for facilities. And there's a resolution that council authorize. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. The council authorized the expenditures for increased staffing or outside contracting for screening to be funded from the Safe Restart Fund. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Matheson, second by Grace. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, then that moves us on to item 8, motions and notices of motion. And there is a motion on truth and reconciliation. First, is there a mover and seconder for this resolution? Moved by Grace, seconded by Smith. It is moved by Councillor Grace, seconded by Councillor Smith, that whereas the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its final report on June 2, 2015, which included 94 calls to action to redress the legacy of residential schools and advance the process of Canadian reconciliation, and whereas the recent discoveries of remains and unmarked graves across Canada have led to increased calls for all levels of government to address the recommendations in the TRC's call to action, and whereas all Canadians and all orders of government have a role to play in reconciliation, and whereas recommendation number 80 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission called upon the federal government in collaboration with Aboriginal peoples to establish as a statutory holiday a National Day of Truth and Reconciliation to ensure that public commemoration of the history and legacy of residential schools remains a vital component of the reconciliation process, and whereas the federal government has announced September 30th, 2021 as the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, or National Orange Shirt Day, and a statutory holiday. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores does hereby commit to recognizing September 30th, 2021 as the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, or National Orange Shirt Day, by sharing the stories of residential school survivors, their families, and communities. Questions or comments to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. I wonder, would the CAO be able to, now that we've passed that resolution, just remind us of some of the things that are planned as part of our recognition on September the 30th?
Sure. Thank you for the question and the opportunity to outline that. Do the best from my memory here, but we have been flying the Every Child Matters flag at several town sites for the month of September. That flag and the Canadian flag will be lowered to half-mast on September 30th and then brought back up at sunset on September 30th. The town of Saugeen Shores also, when these discoveries were made, looked to advance a permanent recognition at the municipal office and have connected with the artist Brent Henry and have commissioned a piece that we're hoping will be able to be delivered in time for September 30th. That will be a permanent recognition to Truth and Reconciliation. We have reached out to both chiefs and Councillor Doran Ritchie, and they're hoping to attend on the 30th as well for that, that painting. Also, staff have been encouraged throughout the office to wear orange that day. We've noted several resources and we can make those public as well, where people can learn more about truth and reconciliation and the process that we have gone through. And I think that covers off the 3 or 4 things that we're doing around the office right now. I'm sorry I wasn't too prepared for that.
You did very well from memory. I apologize for not giving you a heads up on that question, but you did very well. Thank you for that. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to item 9, bylaws. And before I read them, I'll ask, does any member wish to have any of the bylaws drawn out for individual consideration? Don't see any, so I'll read the resolution. That the following bylaws are hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 27th day of September 2021. 1/67/2021 being a bylaw to authorize the entering into of a subdivision agreement with Castle Village Development and Seaton Southampton Limited for the development of Phase 2 of the Southampton Landing subdivision. 2/68/2021 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 1032008 to regulate and/or control traffic in the town of Saugeen Shores. 3/69/2021 being a bylaw to amend parking bylaw 51/2013 to regulate parking, stopping, and standing of vehicles in the town of Saugeen Shores. 4/70/2021 being a bylaw to authorize the entering into of an agreement with the Southampton Snowmobile Club. And 5/71/2021 being a bylaw to authorize agreements with Miramichi Farms, care of Brad and Kathy Pride, for the construction of a trail. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Mattson, second by Schreider. Any questions or comments to the resolution? Councillor Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank those who are responsible for putting together the agreement with the Snowmobile Club. The new trail, it was a great collaborative effort between members of staff, councillors. I think the vice deputy mayor was involved, and with the club, Snowmobile Club, and the Saugeen Rail Trail Association. This is a historic agreement, and it will be for the better and the safer travels of everybody involved. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. All right. And now that moves us on to the close to public session, and I have a resolution that council moving to close the public session to discuss matters in accordance with bylaw 63, 2015, section 3.8.2B regarding personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees regarding 1, adoption of closed to public minutes of September 21, 2021, 2, report municipal service delivery review, and 3, report human resources next steps from municipal service delivery review. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Grace, seconded by Carr. All in favor? That's carried. All right, so we have another Zoom link to go to, so we'll see you there.
Mr. Mayor, we have all members present and you may reconvene the open session.
Okay, thank you, Linda. We will reconvene in open and I will report. Sorry, I'm just a little befuddled with paper here. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so I will report that council did adopt the close to public minutes of September 21st, 2021. That we gave direction with regard to the municipal service delivery review, and that we received information with regard to the human resources next steps from municipal service delivery review. And with that, we will move on to the confirmatory bylaw. And I have a resolution that bylaw 72/2021, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 27th day of September 2021. Is there a mover and seconder? Grease and Carr. All in favor? That's carried. And then finally, I have a resolution that this regular council meeting of September 27, 2021 hereby adjourns at 8:54 p.m. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Matheson, seconded by Smith. All in favor? Council stands adjourned. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.